something for. I mean, so just the fact that, I mean, I once had a student that was coming, you know, came and got help from me on something that, I mean, he never thought he'd have to take another math class or test in his life, and he did for a job he didn't think he would need that for. So we don't want to kind of limit ourselves. So let me pull this out for you guys. Does anyone else ever yell with him when he yells that? All right. Anyone want to come up to the board and do a problem?
No.
No. I never give you guys that option.
Oh, I'll do it.
You want to come up? Go ahead, Ryan.
Like right now?
And, yeah. One of the
Like
ones.
right now, that's so crazy.
You can see how hard it is to write that time. I would be all slow.
But that was yesterday.
It's still slow. You guys agree with him on that? There's 8x and 1x and 9x.
I thought the plus sign was
Oh, that would make it tougher. Negative 2y and negative 2y come together to be negative 4y. Okay. Now, number 2, I picked this one because it is a tricky one. There's a really easy mistake to make.
Can I go up there?
Yeah. You're going to make the tricky mistake.
That?
Can you go any further?
Yes.
And I think you just did one like silly mistake. You'll realize it once I. You want to help us out?
I don't know.
What's the silly?
Negative.
This negative 5.
Oh,
So that's
still be negative?
yeah, it'd just be a minus 10. It didn't impact anything else, which is nice, but now I'm erasing all sorts of things.
Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, that's not a big deal, right?
No.
All right.
It's only 10.
It's only, well, it's actually 20 difference.
Fine, it's only 20.
Add a few more zeros and it's a pretty big deal.
Are there more zeros there?
No.
Exactly.
All right. So we're going to talk about multi-step equations today. So that's going to involve the ones, like the things we were talking about last class, and then kind of the combining like terms. So the first problem I have up here, like our first example, is really, really long. And it's a big example intentionally because it uses all the steps. So there's probably not going to be many problems that are this long. Oh, yeah, sorry, I moved too fast, sorry, with them. They were probably standing in the way.
I zoned out. I didn't realize you started.
No, you're all good. I appreciate the honesty. All right, thank you. All right, so like I said, this first problem we're going to solve is way bigger than most problems we'll do at all. Like, I mean, this is kind of like a really tough problem, I guess I would call it, in the fact that there's a lot of steps here. And the reason why I wanted to do this one, because it kind of addresses all the steps that could come up with solving equations. This isn't the first time you guys have seen this, so that's why I'm going to go through all these steps with you right away. The first few steps that we do are basically simplifying this. So I have kind of a complex equation. I would like to simplify it down to something that's more feasible. And these steps, if you kind of go through these each time, it really will be helpful. Now, sometimes you can skip some of these steps, but this problem, I don't think we should be able to skip any. I think they all apply. Just like we did yesterday, we're going to start by distributing. So if we're able to, we're gonna distribute first. So that's gonna be our very first step. Now sometimes you won't have to do this step. Just like, your parents give you a list of chores you need to do and you go down and look and it says make your bed and you're like, already done, so you just check that off, like it's done. In this case, we have to distribute. So what are we distributing here? What are we distributing?
Foreign.
4. So we're going to distribute that foreign. I'm going to multiply that in just like we did yesterday. Any of this, so I'm just going to rewrite it. And that did not take me very long. It took the board longer than it took me. And so, don't be lazy, just rewrite it. All right, so once we've distributed, there's no more parentheses. Now we're going to do some combining like terms. So I have 2 steps in my combining like terms, and you don't really have to break it down this way, but I'll explain it. So combine like terms, what I like to do first is I like to stick on one side of the equal sign, or on each side separately, and then I'll bring them together. So on each side first, so I'm going to start on each side of the equal sign. So I'm going to look at the left side, I'm going to look at the right. So just like we did yesterday, look at just like that left side of the equal sign. What can I put together over there? So if you can ignore this half. The 4C and C. We're just going to put those together. Just combine the like terms. So 4C and C is how many? 5C. Then on the other side, equals, I can put that 4 and -6 together, right? And since I'm combining my terms on the same side, I just kind of smush them together the way they are. So 4 minus 6 is going to be a -2. Or you could write 7C minus 2. It doesn't matter the order you put that in. Now, yeah, that's okay. And I know some of you guys have already worked ahead and solved it. It's fine. But I like showing the steps just in case, like I said, this is a tougher one because it has so many steps. Now at this point, I like to bring the variables to one side of the equal sign or the other, whichever side we want to go. So bring variables to one side. Oops, that's bring. Bring. So we'll bring variables to one side, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. So I have a 5C on one side and a 7C on the other. I want to have which one would you guys prefer to move? Preference?
5C.
I would like to move the 5C. I like my variable to be positive, but some of you guys might be like, well, I always look at it on the left side. It doesn't really matter. I tend to move the smaller of the two. So to move this over to the other side, now this is where the solving kind of starts. To move this over, I have to undo it. So I'm going to have to do the opposite of what I just did. So I'm actually going to subtract. This is a positive 5C. So I'm going to take it away. And so if you've never seen it shown that way, that's just my way to like visualize that I'm taking this away. Because it's going to cancel here. I'll be left with 8 on this side. And then I have a -2 and then a positive 2C. And again, if you've moved ahead of this already, just, sorry, sit tight for now. All right, now we're getting into the actually just solving equations, like pretty routine steps here. The next step is we're gonna try to get the variable alone by moving addition or subtraction away. So I'm gonna add or subtract to get that x all alone or that c all alone. So looking at what's happening to C, I'd like to move that -2 away. So in order to do that, to move -2 the other side, I'm going to add a negative, or I'm going to add 2. So -2 and +2 is going to cancel. 8 and 2 is going to be 10. And then there's going to be a 2C left on that right side. And then our last couple steps here, the next one, we're going to multiply or divide to get that C alone. So this is being multiplied to C, so instead I'm going to divide by 2. This is going to cancel. Just going to have C, and that's going to equal 5. Now, I don't like it written that way, so my last step is kind of flip it around, so write C equals 5. But if you want to and you have some extra time, you can always check your work. You can go back and put that 5 back in. It should work. So whatever it is, so like the variable equals, so like C equals 5. What do we want to answer? If you want to, you can check your work. It won't require that you check it. But the way we check our work is kind of like what we were doing yesterday when we substitute those values back in. Okay? Now, if that problem was terrible and you were like, oh no, like this is awful, we're not going to have a ton of problems that are that long. We're going to have more problems like these first few here. So just that you guys know, these come up very often, so just that you guys are aware, this is not something you should be like terrified of, but just be careful with your works. Sometimes it's easy to make silly mistakes because we think they're easy. So for example, our first one here, it says 52 equals P minus 13. I want to get the P alone. So what's happening to it? What am I going to undo here? So it's a minus 13, so I need to add 13. Check your work, please. I don't want to name names or anything, but. Does she need stuff to do? So like, should I post this video like halfway through? Is she gonna?
Yeah, I said I'd pull down there when it was,
Okay.
homework was done and I checked that.
Okay.
It was done correctly.
Okay, good.
So,
I like look quickly. I'm like, that doesn't look right. So we added 13 in this case because it was minus 13. So our P ends up being 65. So 65 minus 13 is 52. So like that's kind of a way to check that that worked. Right? Number 2. Now this one has 2 steps. That one really didn't have many steps, and I probably should have pointed this out. We had all these steps up here, and I only did one thing. Because that's all there was to do. Just like, you know, you have a list of things you have to do. Once you check it off, you don't have to keep going back and doing the same thing. So our next one here, in terms of deciding what to do first, there's no parentheses, so that's distributing. There's no like terms, like on each side of the equal sign. So we're ready to solve. So we want to add or subtract first. So I want to get rid of whatever is being added or subtracted to y. So what are we going to get rid of first? Yeah, go ahead. Add 5. So I'm doing that to each side of the equal sign. And I'd like to show that by, if it helps to draw like a line there or something, -5, +5, that cancels. And then 39 and 5 is going to be 44. Now once I'm here, I'm multiplying by 2. multiplied. So then we're gonna divide. Maybe finish this problem before we. And so then we're 44 divided by 2, so we're gonna do 22. Okay? Alright, we're gonna flip to the back side. That one's gonna involve some like terms and stuff like that. We'll do a couple of those, and then we'll take a little break. Oh, sorry. I'm looking, you're still writing. I flipped it. Sorry. I ran into that shelf over there today on like my upper hip, and oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. Like I have like a huge lump on it. It's gonna leave a mark. All right. So in number 3 here, the first thing we want to do is we want to combine some like terms. So we have these two h's here. We have negative h and negative h. What's that going to end up being? It's going to be a negative 2h. So negative 1, negative 1. So it's going to be a negative 2h. So I combine those like terms first. There was no distributive property to worry about, so we combine those first. Next step, what are we going to get rid of?
Did I add in the 2h?
Oh, you move the 2h over. That works.
I like working with positives and I don't like negatives.
Yeah, I just don't bother to do it if it's already by itself.
And then I also end up with 2 positives right away.
That's okay. Yeah, because this will end up being negative to start off with. What do you guys want to move? If you don't, what do you move?
I subtracted and flip the 2 and 13.
Okay. So I would move 19. I see some of you guys what you're up to, and that would work fine. I just so I get a negative 2h, and this will be a negative 6. So what Clayton was saying is he doesn't like those negatives, so he could kind of switch things around in a different way, and it still works. It just it's probably 1 or 2 extra steps. Yeah.
If both sides are negative, can you just put a positive in the
You'd have to change all of this, like every little term. So like this would be negative, like, so you can flip them all. If you change one sign, you have to change all the signs. So h ends up being 3. Yeah. So if you went about it a different way, I like, again, real world math, like how you get there, I'm not as concerned about, but at the same time, like if it's not working for you, try my way, I guess, or let's talk about like what you're up to and try to figure out what's going on that's not working. All right, so number 4 here, what's being distributed here? There's a negative 1 that's being distributed. So we want to send that in. The 4m doesn't change quite yet. This becomes a minus 2m and then a plus 1. And I believe we're going to get a decimal for this one, or a fraction. Don't let that scare you. That's okay. Decimals and fractions don't need to be scary, especially when we have a calculator. It shouldn't be scary anyway, but. So I put those 2 together because they're like terms, so they're combined on the same side. Now I'm going to move that 1 away. And then I'll end up dividing by 2. So I can either get 7 halves, 3 1/2, 3.5, however you guys want to write this. I don't really have a preference on which way. All right, I'm going to upload this because I have some people that are virtual today. So I'm going to put those online real quick just so they have part of the video to get going on. But we can take a little break here and then we'll finish.